Good day to all our viewers across the Caribbean and indeed the world. Tonight, as part of the CARIBUPDATE Exclusive series, I sit down with Cuba's ambassador in St. George's, Yadaris and Cheneke Paz. I am joined by Cuba's ambassador to Grenada, Yadaris and Cheneke Paz, as we take a look at the current situation in Cuba and also the recent UN debate surrounding the U.S. embargo imposed on Havana decades ago. Welcome, Ambassador and Cheneke Paz.
And thank you very much for having me today. It's a great pleasure for me to have this exchange with you.
Okay. First of all, tell us about yourself and your work here in Grenada as in the foreign affairs system. Sorry.
Yes, of course. Well, I graduated in 2014 at International Relations degree in the Higher Institute of Foreign Affairs in Havana, Raúl Roa Garcia. Then I started my work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, specifically in the Department of Middle East. And then I was appointed at the Embassy of Cuba in Qatar. Mm-hmm. It was a great opportunity for me because, as you can imagine, it's a different world. Yeah. And I have, the possibility to learn more about its culture. It was a challenge also because you have to learn how to negotiate, how to understand everything around you. And of course, being a Cuban diplomat, is very, you have a great responsibility because you are representing Cuban people, you are representing values and the history of my country. So now in Grenada, I also have the opportunity to represent Cuba, to represent my people. And of course, as ambassador here, I have the duty to continue strengthening the relations between both countries because, as you know, Cuba and Grenada have a special relation. And this is my main duty, to develop all kind of cooperation in all sectors that we can do it, and continue with this friendship that is an historical friendship.
How has your welcome been in Grenada?
So far, everything is going very well. I have to say that we have received all the support for the government and all the institutions in Grenada. You can feel in the people of Grenada that they love Cuba and they are very solidarity with Cuba. So it's very easy to be here and I feel very comfortable. For that reason, my commitment is, I have more commitment in order to continue with this good relation between our country because I have a responsibility with my country, but I also have a responsibility with the Grenadian people.
You speak about having a responsibility to foster the relationship between Grenada and Cuba. How will you discuss the state of the bilateral relationship between the two countries?
Well, we need to say that this year, for example, we are celebrating the 47th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between both countries. We're celebrating on April 14. And this is an example that we have, achieved so far. I mean, in terms of cooperation, our relation has a long history because when we established diplomatic in 1979, immediately we started the cooperation with Grenada. We can mention, for example, the construction of the international airport. We can mention, of course, the scholarships, all the technicians that Grenada received at that time from Cuba in terms of agriculture, construction, even education, and the scholarships. So health sector also have received a lot of cooperation from Cuba. And our intention, of course, is to find new ways of cooperation. I think that we have opportunities in terms of, climate change, because we are an island and we have challenges to face, and Cuba has a history in terms of how to deal with all these problems that is causing the global warming. Grenada also has the same challenges, and we have to cooperate on that, and the recovery of the coastal. Also in terms of culture, We can help Grenada in recovery, for example, all these heritage sites that you have here in the country and need for, for the support of the specialists from abroad. And think we have a lot of sectors that we can extend this cooperation and we can reinforce the cooperation that we have. And this is my duty as ambassador here, and I'm sure that I will find in the government of Grenada the same will to extend this cooperation and to reinforce our cooperation.
How is the embassy looking to expand that cooperation between Grenada and itself?
Yes, as I told you, we have established some sectors when we have experience in cooperation. So maybe we have to retake some kind of cooperation in a specific sector or to reinforce the cooperation is already existing. But we can find other sectors where we can cooperate. And one of them, for example, it can be in terms of the, cultural heritage. As I told you before, recently we signed a memorandum of understanding between the Ministry of Culture of Grenada and Ministry also of Culture in Cuba, specifically an agency relating to the heritage. In the future, we are going to receive some specialists from Cuba. They are going to help Grenada to recover these sites, these historical sites, they recover the history, because I think it's very important for the future generations in Grenada. And also we are speaking about the resilience in terms of to face the challenges of the global warming. As we are an island, we need to cooperate on this and to find a way to reverse all the effects, the impact that is having the global warming on that. And also in biotechnology, I think that we can cooperate with Grenada. We have medicine, we have products that are unique, and we know that Grenada can take benefit of that.
Okay. It is no secret that the U.S. has imposed the embargo on Cuba. It's been decades now. That embargo was at the center of a UN, United Nations General Assembly debate. What can you tell us about that? Can you talk to us about that?
Yes, of course. Well, the Grenadian people knows very well that Cuba has been facing this embargo. We call blockade because it's a blockade. So they are trying to cut any kind of income and to cut any kind of relation of Cuba with the rest of the world. So for that reason, we call blockade, because it's not only a bilateral issue. It has an extraterritorial impact in the relation of Cuba with the rest of the world. We have been suffering for over 60 years this blockade, but now it's worse, because since the beginning of this year, in January, President Trump approved an executive order establishing an energy blockade against Cuba. So he is threatening with sanctions to any country or company that decide to provide fuel to Cuba, oil to Cuba. So you can imagine the effect that these sanctions on this threat have on the economy of Cuba and on the population. Because without electricity, you cannot have a normal life. So our population has more than 20 hours without electricity. All the vital sectors in the country are affected. Hospitals, we have a waiting list of patients waiting for surgery. We have decreased in some indicators of health that Cuba always has been, very well known, because we have reached good indicators in terms of health and education, and we are suffering for the impact of this energy blockade. And for that reason, Cuba requested to the President of the General Assembly of the United Nations to establish a debate, because the situation during this year has worsened. As I told you, United States not only has approved this energy blockade against Cuba, is also have approved some specific sanctions to suffocate the economic development of Cuba, and they are trying to strangulate and to isolate Cuba from the rest of the world. But now, with very cruel sanctions and very cruel measures. And for that reason, Cuba requested that debate in the General Assembly. The majority of the members of the General Assembly vote, in favor to have this debate, and it was demonstrated that the majority of the members of the United Nations, they know that the blockade against Cuba is illegal, is violating the international law, and for that reason it's necessary to put an end on this blockade against Cuba. And this is, for 33 years, it has been approved on the General Assembly of the United Nations, a resolution that Cuba presents every year to demand, with this denunciation and demanding the end of the blockade. And we have received an overwhelming, support on this matter.
This majority vote to proceed with that debate, what does that say about the international community's mood regarding the U.S. embargo against Cuba?
There is, even when United States government is pressuring governments and they are trying to isolate Cuba and they are trying to justify all these sanctions, there is a general opinion around the world, not only from governments, from the people around the world, that this blockade is unfair, as is illegal, and is the principal obstacle for the development of Cuba. So when we hear, for example, the speeches of many representatives from government in the General Assembly last week, we hear the support that Cuba received on this denunciation, on this claim to remove the blockade. So this is something that has to end, because this is genocide, and this is a policy that tries to exterminate a population as Cuba. And there is not any justification to continue with that. And the world knows about that, and the world supports the claim of Cuba on this issue.
Do you think that position by the international community, let's say, for example, at the vote in October or debate in October, they all come together and say yes unanimously, do you think that is enough pressure for the U.S. to actually put an end to this blockade on Cuba?
Yes, in fact, it was a lot of pressure, before this debate on the General Assembly, because the government of the United States is trying to, as I told you, to say that there is no blockade against Cuba. Cuba is exaggerating, and Cuba can trade with anyone, any country in the world. They are trying to mitigate the effects of this blockade. We know that coming especially from the Department of State, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, we know that he's trying to isolate Cuba in terms of diplomacy, in terms economical also, in all aspects. They are trying to isolate Cuba. And one of the aspects that they want to undermine is the support that Cuba has always achieved in the General Assembly relating to the resolution against the blockade. For that reason, they are going to use any kind of, of way to do it, pressure, threats with tariff, everything to undermine this majority support that Cuba receives. But we are sure that the world recognizes that this is unfair, this is an unfair policy, and we are going to continue receiving the support that for 33 years we have received at the United Nations. And of course, we count also with the support of the government of Grenada, because as I told you, it has been an historical support that we have only received. We have always received from Grenada in terms of the resolution against the blockade.
You spoke about the difficulties that Cuba and the Cuban people are facing now because of the blockade. What can ordinary Grenadians do to show solidarity to Cuba at this time, and what can you report on what have been done for the past few months?
Yes, we have to say that even with Cuba is facing difficult times, we are receiving a lot of solidarity for many governments and for many organizations around the world. And I have to say and recognize that in the case of Grenada, we have this, national campaign, this campaign of solidarity with Cuba. We would like to recognize the role of its organizing committee, Citizens for Cuba. This campaign started on April 14, last April 14. And you can see in the media, and maybe you have been in many places, so people have commented about all the activities that so far we have taken places in Grenada, like concert, like dinner, like other activities to raise funds to help to the Cuban people. So, and in this campaign, they are participating all the population in Grenada. I mean, churches, the graduates in Cuba, unions. So there is a national movement to recognizing, the necessity that Cuba has in this moment to receive this kind of support. And we really appreciate that. And this is an example of the friendship that always has existed between both countries. And we really, as I told you, we thank a lot to all people that are participating on this campaign, specifically to the organizing committee.
Cuba has been aiding a lot of countries around the world, including here in Grenada, Caribbean, wider Caribbean, in certain sectors such as education and health. Given the current situation in Cuba, is it possible that Cuba can continue providing those kind of aid to the countries?
Cuba, to help other countries, especially undeveloped country, is a principle of the foreign policy of Cuba and a principle of the revolution has always defended. Cuba always has been facing economic problems due to the blockade. But despite of that, Cuba has always had the will to help as we can, in wherever we can help. So in Grenada, for example, we can highlight that around 700 of Cubans collaborators have been in Grenada helping in many sectors as health, agriculture, construction, teaching. So for Cuba, it's not a problem. We are facing, a difficult situation, but this is not separate of our disposition and our conviction that we have to provide to the world what we have.
Yeah.
And this is a principle that we have always defended in the Cuban Revolution. As long as Grenada needs Cuba, Cuba will be there for Grenada. So this cooperation still remains in terms of scholarship, for example, in terms of health, in terms of cultural interchange. So this is a principle that we never abandon, because this is the way that Cuba defends, and this is a duty for the Cuban Revolution to help and to be there for our friends.
Okay. We are in discussions with Cuba's ambassador in St. George's, Yadaris Enichinique Paz. We will be right back.